Rev up your engines!
Here we go. Elon Musk is at it again. They're going to have research and development being done in China for electric cars. Now, if we go into a little history of this, I'll give you some insight that might kind of shock you. Way back in 2017, some journalists researched and they went through the Chinese records and they found out that in the records there was a new entity back in 2017 called Tesla New Energy R&D Limited. So back in 2017, they filed for this and now have a research and design headquarters in China. He's not saying exactly where, when the date is going to be. I've got two things to say about this. One, I think some of it has to do with actually a stock ploy. There are rumblings in China over electric cars. Their sales are going down. The Chinese government is supposedly getting rid of the credit that you get for buying an electric car. Things are getting kind of worrisome in the electric car market in China, so now he's talking about it more to probably make it look a little bit better for the investors, for the Chinese to put more money into it, or at least keep their money in it that they've already put into it. You're gonna have to watch where things are made, because Tesla started here in the United States with this factory, right? Now he's got the Model 3 factory in China. Now he's saying he's going to have a research and development headquarters there. Maybe all this stuff's going to end up migrating to China. Who knows? I'll give you a perfect example. Optima Battery was originally made in the United States, an American company, right? They started to get popular, and then they opened up a plant in Mexico. And they told the people in the United States, don't worry about it. You can't make enough here, so the ones in Mexico, they're just going to make the batteries for the rest of the world where we sell it. Don't worry. Well, about 7 years later, they closed down the American plants, and now they only made them in Mexico. And actually, the quality went downhill, too. If you know anything about Optima batteries, do a little research, you'll see the quality went downhill when they moved it to Mexico. So, be a little bit leery about things moving to China, especially if research and development's going there. All those ideas, they're going over to China. So I'd watch Elon kind of closely the next few years to see what actually happens with them. Richard A. says, Scotty, I'm thinking of buying a 2005 Infiniti G35 Coupe with 95,000 miles. Is it a good buy? Only if you're paying just a couple grand or something for it. They were excellent cars when they were new, but as they age, Infinitis become endless money pits. That's an '05. That was after Renault took over Nissan and the quality started to go down. If you can get it cheap enough, I do have a few customers left that bought those things used for a couple grand, $2-3 grand. They use them as a weekend car. They're very luxurious cars. And 95,000 miles, I've seen them with 150 before they started falling apart. It could be okay, but don't pay much for one because you're getting no guarantee. It's a 15-year-old Infiniti with almost 200,000 miles. It could be a fun toy, but don't put much money into it. Kuma Makuni says, Scotty, what do you think about AmSoil? Is it worth the extra money? Okay, AmSoil is an excellent oil. It is. I got a case of it in my garage. It's an excellent oil. I got friends who race cars. They swear by AmSoil. That's the only thing that they're going to use. But let's say you're like me and you don't drive all that much. I change my oil once a year because I don't even drive 3,000 miles a year. It'd be a waste of money for me because I don't need that kind of protection. Now, let's say you're driving a Porsche 911, you redline all the time. Definitely buy something like that, or the highest quality oil you get your hands on. But if it's an everyday driving car, you don't need to spend that kind of money on oil. I mean, the last time I priced that stuff was like $10 a quart. I can get decent stuff down the street at AutoZone for $5 a quart. I'm not going to pay twice as much if I'm going to be changing it regularly and I don't strain my cars out. So it's your choice. It's your money. It's excellent oil. There's nothing wrong with the oil. But it can be overkill for a lot of people's uses. Jason Rice says, why hasn't hydrogen really ever taken off? At one point in time, it actually did take off. The U.S. Air Force experimented with using hydrogen as a fuel. And they did it both in aircraft and vehicles on the ground. And it burns cleaner. It has lots of power. But the problem is, hydrogen is a gas. You got to compress it like mad in tanks that are very dangerous if they explode. Making hydrogen in the first place, you have to have an infrastructure for making hydrogen. Now, it can easily be done if people don't mind spending the energy and money. The ocean is full of H2O. There's lots of hydrogen there, but you got to use electrolysis to break them apart, and then you got the hydrogen. Then you got to compress it, then you got to run it in a vehicle. So that's why it really never took off. Take those hydrogen fuel cell cars. They work perfectly fine. They're fueled by hydrogen, and the only thing that comes out of the back is a little bit of heat and water vapor. But you got to have the hydrogen, and it's not an easy thing to create. It takes energy to create it, and in the end, it's kind of a net loss process if you have to create it from water. So That's probably why it didn't take off. Bonifacio! Hello, Mr. Kilmer. When should I use Eco and Power Mode on my 2020 Toyota Fortuner 2x4? I heard it can damage engines if it's always on. Thanks. No, it doesn't damage anything. What it does is, if you push the Eco button, you'll get the best gas mileage. The engine won't have quite as much acceleration. The gears will shift a little bit sooner, so you get better gas mileage. On the other hand, if you use the power mode, then it will have more power. The transmission will stay in the lower gears longer for more acceleration. Like if you had a standard transmission, you'd leave it in first gear a little longer to get going, and then second, rev it up in third. So it doesn't hurt anything either way. It just depends on how you want to drive a vehicle. If you want to get the best gas mileage, or if you want to have more power, and switching back and forth isn't going to hurt anything. They're made for that. Joe Dick says, anybody know how good my 2015 Town and Country van is? Well, I'm not a fan of Chryslers, I'll tell you. I've had customers with those things that had so many problems. Maybe you got lucky and got a good one. But the problem with Chrysler is they had transmission problems, air conditioning problems, electrical problems. Maybe you got one that was made on a Wednesday, as they say. Monday, they're hungover. Wednesday is middle of the week, they're kind of into it, and then Friday, they're thinking about the weekend. Maybe you got a Wednesday-made van, and it's a decent van. I mean, you own it, so you might as well take care of the thing, because they have very bad resale value, so if you try selling it, you lose your shirt. So take care of it, change the oil a lot, baby it. You never know how long it's going to last. Personally, I would have bought a Toyota Sienna van, because those things can last forever. Eleanor Prado says, Scotty, my current car is a 90 Jeep Cherokee 4x4, 164,000 miles. I never buy new. Can you lead me in the right direction for something newer from 2006 Ford that gets good gas mileage, all-wheel drive? Well, to begin with, most all-wheel drive vehicles do not get good gas mileage. All that extra drivetrain, more friction, more weight, so they always get worse gas mileage. But if you want kind of the best you're going to get, you could look at a RAV4. My son's wife drives one, all-wheel drive RAV4, and they like it. And it gets decent gas mileage, but his Corolla gets much better gas mileage. You just realize you get all-wheel drive, you're not going to get fantastic gas mileage. Roland McClendon says, I have a problem with my 2016 Chevy Malibu 1.5 turbo. It has that stop technology. It won't start. I replaced the battery. How do I get it to crank up? There's lots of reasons things won't start. You replace the battery, perhaps you need a starter. When a car doesn't start, if you turn the key and nothing happens, generally you got a bad battery or a bad starter. Now you could have bad wiring, corroded ground wires, but it's only, what, a 3-year-old Malibu, so it's not that old, so it shouldn't have corroded terminals and stuff on it. Odds are you probably need a starter. Any mechanic can test it easy. Put power directly to the starter from our own battery, remote battery, and if it doesn't crank over, then we'll know the starter's bad. It could easily be the starter's gone bad. Daddy Gamer 555 says, I think reliability is based on user negligence. The longer a car can operate without proper maintenance, the more reliable it's said to be. You know, you got a good point there. Let's take Toyotas. I have customers with Toyotas that do very little maintenance on their cars. I had one who had a Toyota, the old Previa van, and the guy had driven it 110,000 miles, and he'd never changed the oil. Ever. Not even once. Because he was a salesman. Hey, if I changed the oil every 5,000 miles, I'd be changing it every week and a half, because he drove all over the southwestern United States. But the thing was still running. Now, on the other hand, I had a customer with a Chrysler, and he went 24,000 miles without changing the oil, and the engine blew up. So the Toyota was still going at 110,000 miles, and the Chrysler, it blew up at 25,000 miles. So that'll show you how much more reliable the Toyota was than the Chrysler. Of course, you got to maintain your vehicle if you want it to last the longest. But if you are bad at maintaining your car and you know it, hey, get a Toyota or a Honda, because it's going to last a lot longer with bad maintenance. Secretary office says, can I use Toyota CVT Fluid FE for Nissan Mitsubishi CVT transmission, and why? My philosophy is stick to the fluid that it came with. All CVT transmissions are designed by engineers to use a certain fluid. It's best to just stick to that fluid. It's very critical. Now, the only thing that I've ever found as the opposite of that is the Toyota CVT transmissions. They work perfectly fine, of course, with the Toyota fluid. But if you get a good fluid, like, let's say, a Castrol CVT fluid, it seems to work perfectly fine in the Toyotas. But the other ones, I would stick to the fluids that they came with. Over the years, just Toyota generally, you could often use other manufacturers' fluid in the Toyotas, and they'd work perfectly fine. But Honda? No. If you didn't put the Honda fluid in a Honda in the past, you could often have problems. So with the other manufacturers, I would stick to the stuff it came with, because really, none of it is that outrageously expensive unless you're talking about a BMW or stuff. It's always anywhere from $5 to $8 a quart. I mean, some of the BMWs, it's like $50 a quart. It's just ridiculous. But with the Japanese vehicles, it's not all that expensive to get the original equipment. It's best to stick to it. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.